Welcome back to Visions. I'm Megan Searle, and our guests this evening are Kurt Esser and Jessie Taylor from the Justice Project. Welcome back. Now, Jessie, we've been hearing a lot about the Right to Work campaign. Can you fill us in on that one?
Sure. The Right to Work campaign is a campaign that's been organised by the Network of Asylum Seeker Agencies in Victoria, NASA-VIC, and it is aimed at alleviating some of the pressures and hardships that are experienced by people who are on Bridging Visa E in the community. Okay. And Bridging Visa E is a visa which is given to people in a number of circumstances, but generally speaking, the people who hold Bridging Visa E are asylum seekers, so people seeking refugee status.
And currently, what rights do these people have while their applications are going through the system?
Very, very few rights indeed. They don't have work rights, which means that they don't have Medicare access, and they also don't have any support from Centrelink. So by virtue of the nature of the visa, they have just sort of abject poverty as their lot simply by the conditions of the visa that they're on.
So how do they survive at the moment?
Well, NASA-VIC, the Network of Asylum Seeker Agencies in Victoria, includes organisations like the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre and the Hotham Mission and other agencies which charge themselves with the obligation, with the responsibility of providing food vouchers, Met cards, nappies, sanitary products, legal help, housing help, all sorts of things. So without those agencies, people would be, starving on the streets, if you like.
So these are refugees who so the applications are in the system at the moment, whether they will get refugee status and then therefore get the other rights.
That's right.
So while they're waiting, we have them in this situation.
Exactly right. And there's an irony here because often people who are on Bridging Visa E are those who have been released from detention because they have untenable levels of mental stress or medical issues, mental health issues, but they're being released onto a visa where they have no right to Medicare. And there are many cases where a mum has turned up to a hospital with an asthmatic child in, high level of distress in the middle of the night, and they've just been turned away. So it's really unacceptable. And thankfully there have been some really positive moves in the community, like the Health Minister, Bronwyn Pike, has sent a circular to a lot of hospitals in Victoria saying, if an asylum seeker presents to you with a Bridging Visa E, I don't care if they have money, I don't care if they have Medicare, you treat them, we'll deal with it later. Because there are people with letters from debt collectors saying, you came to our hospital, where's our money, So, and people are just panicking and therefore not seeking the help that they need, and there's a lot of really heavy burdens placed on people who have already had it quite tough.
So given that, what's the likely outcome of this campaign?
Well, we're really hoping that it will lead the general community into a little bit more awareness of the conditions of Bridging Visa E, lead to the public putting pressure on the government to change the conditions of that visa, because now that things like children in detention is less of an issue, the Pacific solution is winding up somewhat, with perhaps the exception of the West Papuan asylum seekers who have arrived in the last few weeks. This is really an issue which is causing massive hardship for quite a few thousand people in the Australian community.
It's also unnecessarily harsh.
Yes.
The right to work is something that people take for granted. There's another kind of catch-22 as well. Many of these people have got valuable skills.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the idea of these people being prevented from working when they have marketable skills, they could be contributing, they could be paying for themselves in a cynical kind of way, but that these people should be just shelved and marginalised when they're willing, able and wanting to work, wanting to participate, wanting to be included. It's just a very pernicious regulation that stops people from making a contribution.
Exactly. And when we go back to the Charter of Rights and Responsibilities, when we take it for granted that we get health care, we take it for granted that we can work.
Very interestingly, actually, recently NASA-VIC conducted a skills audit of asylum seekers who are clients of the agencies who are involved in the network, and they audited the skills, qualifications and former professions of quite a few hundred asylum seekers. 71% of them had skills which were on their migrants occupations needed list that DMIA has presented. And there have been
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It really is. thousands of people who are willing, able and desperate to work that are not being allowed to. Meanwhile, in the same, exactly the same climate, we're talking about importing skilled workers. It's insane. And there have been some calculations done on a very sort of conservative scenario of 75% of adult work-aged bridging visa e-holders just gaining minimum wage employment would add $75 million into the Australian economy in 3 years. And if it was all adult work-aged asylum seekers on bridging visa E, it would be akin to $118 million injection into the Australian economy over the next 3 years. And people getting on with their lives, not creating welfare dependency just by the nature of a visa. So
we're standing on the brink of a win-win situation.
Oh, this is what it sounds like.
And this
what's
dumb
stopping
government
this? What
is just
stopping it?
not getting the message.
Yeah.
I mean, we're deporting the very same people in respect of whom we claim to have a skills shortage.
Yes.
I mean, it's just dumb.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same people, you know?
It just does not make sense.
It doesn't at all.
So is it that the message is just has not got through yet?
Well, the message is slowly getting through, but we're facing the real difficulty that there's a huge amount of misinformation about the situation of asylum seekers out there. I mean, people are under the misapprehension that all people who apply for asylum seekers are engaging in some kind of illegal activity. So there's a massive job that the Justice Project... it sure is. But there's a massive job of public education, community education, that the Justice Project regards as very much on the agenda. And we're right behind efforts such as this to bring it to people's attention, people to write to their local members and to really apply some pressure at the highest level to have this insane situation corrected.
Well, it just seems so logical, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And it's quite incredible that it's just not matching up.
My mum actually employs a recent guy who was recently released from immigration detention, who's an Iranian refugee on a TPV. I had dinner at my mum's house last night and she was singing his praise. My mum was one of those people who was very reserved about, you know, hold on, I'm not sure about having lots of refugees coming to Australia. You know, she was exactly the kind of person who didn't necessarily understand the full consequences, the full gamut of this policy. But now she's got a guy working for her, and she cannot believe how hard he works. She cannot believe how willing he is to absolutely put in everything.
And astounding.
So
any of your viewers who are interested in taking the matter a bit further, one of the things they could do is join a political party and press for inside that party for some sanity on both sides of Parliament. We would say we need a good dose of sense.
Exactly.
And if they want to take it a step further, they should come and volunteer and put themselves on our mailing list.
Excellent, and a great message. You're watching Visions. We'll be back in a moment.